Good afternoon, members of parliament, support staff, radio listeners, TV viewers, those following via social media, and members of the media. Welcome to the continuation of this public meeting number 11 of the parliamentary year 2024-2025 for today, Thursday, November 6th, 2025. I'd like to give a special welcome to the Minister of Finance, Marinka Gums, and her support staff. We have established a quorum of 8 members. Please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have received a notice of absence from the following members: MP Ludmila De Wever, MP Egbert Doran, and MP Franklin Myers. I have not received any notice of lateness. Does any other member have any notification? I see MP Arian. MP Arian, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, Khafir. Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon to the Honorable Minister of Finance and her support staff. Mr. Chairman, just a brief notification that I believe, I have to confirm if it has been submitted, a updated refinement of the legislation submitted before based on the feedback from the Central Bank. And there's 2, basically. But we could go further in the clarifications, I guess, or maybe interruptions. Thank you.
Thank you for your notifications, MP Arian. Is there any other member? I don't see the need. We continue with the agenda point for this public meeting. Draft National Ordinance containing rules regarding a basic payment account for consumers. National Ordinance Basic Payment Account. Parliamentary year 2023-2024. 174. Under IS 292 2023-2024, dated December 20th, 2023. The draft national ordinance containing rules regarding a basic payment account for consumers was received on December 20th, 2023 by Parliament. A Central Committee meeting was held on January 4th, 2024 on the subject matter, in which the members of Parliament posed their questions on the draft national ordinance. A report has been made on the deliberations of the Central Committee meeting and was sent to the government, as well as to the members. The government answered this report with a so-called note naar aanleiding van het verslag, note following the final report, which was received by Parliament on February 27, 2025, under IS 652-2024-2025. These documents are available on Teams, Parliament's General Team. This public meeting was first convened on April 29, 2025. At the handling of Agenda Point 2, the Honorable Minister of Finance gave a presentation on the subject. Thereafter, in accordance with the speakers list, members of Parliament were given the opportunity to pose questions to the Minister in the first round. The Minister returned on October 30th, 2025 to answer to the questions posed by the members of Parliament and address clarifications in this first round. The meeting was adjourned after the members were afforded the opportunity to pose questions in the second round. The Minister has returned today, once again, to provide the answers to the questions posed by the members of Parliament in the second round. It is important to note that during the meeting of April 29th, an amendment from Member of Parliament, Mr. Ardwa Irian, was submitted and has been forwarded to the government for its response to the amendment. This document is registered on the IS 953-2024-2025. Additionally, on September 17, 2025, Parliament received a memorandum of modification from the government. This memorandum has been forwarded to the members of Parliament and will form part of the draft as submitted by government. This document is registered on the IS 068-2025-2026. It is also important to note that a second amendment from Member of Parliament, Mrs. Sarah Westcott Williams, was submitted on October 29th and has been forwarded to the government for its response to the amendment. This document is registered on the IS 243-2025-2026. Before I give the floor to the Minister, as this is a public meeting, allow me to remind you of the usage of interruptions. The following guide applies in accordance with Article 43 of the Rules of Order. The chairperson may permit interruptions. These interruptions should aim to seek clarification, challenge assertions, or contribute additional information, and should consist of brief remarks or questions without introduction. The chairperson will ensure order and decorum during the meetings and the use of interruptions. Members, ministers, and guests must maintain parliamentary decorum and refrain from making offensive or disorderly interruptions. Members will be allowed 3 interruptions per agenda point. The interruptions are to be posed from the lectern placed in the Legislative Hall. Let me just update the members as to the amount of interruptions that have been used. MP Sarah Westcott-Williams has used 1 interruption. MP Doran has used 1, and MP Irian has used all 3 interruptions. I now give the floor to the Honorable Minister of Finance, Ms. Marinka, to answer the questions posed by the members of Parliament in the second round. Minister, you now have the floor.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, honorable members of Parliament, Griffier, persons in the Tribune, my dedicated support staff, persons tuned in via social media platforms, radio listeners, people of St. Martin, good afternoon, all under the sound of my voice, and a blessed day. Mr. Chair, I am here to respond to the questions posed by the honorable members of Parliament based on the second round questions, and I start with MP La Cruz. Based on the motion that was presented by MP La Cruz, through you, Mr. Chair, I would like to thank the honorable MP for his motion presented and also the inclusion of a minimum threshold. I completely agree, as we must keep in mind the realities of St. Martin. I will have these discussions with the central bank to address the matter as it relates to the threshold of the basic payment accounts and inform Parliament accordingly. And now move on to questions posed by MP Roseberg. What further study will be conducted to look into that? And to that, MP Roseberg was referring to the threshold. Mr. Chair, through you, at this time, no additional study is deemed necessary. That being said, further discussions with the central bank and the commercial banks will be required to determine the appropriate amount or threshold, taking into consideration St. Martin's specific circumstances and the motion presented by MP La Cruz. Next question. Although we share the same central bank, based on discussions with the banks, clarification is needed on how the amount of 3,000 was determined, 3,000 Caribbean guilders was determined. Was this figure agreed upon by all the banks? There has not been a clear answer on that point. The concern is to avoid a situation where a specific amount was agreed upon, but if that amount is later increased, some banks might withdraw from the project, thereby limiting access for the community, and that was the MP's concern. Mr. Chair, through you, the amount of 3,000 Caribbean guilders is based on a study conducted by the central bank, the findings of which show that a significant majority of individuals earn 3,000 Caribbean guilders or less, 80% for Curacao and 78% in St. Martin. This amount was agreed upon with the banks, taking into account the requirements of correspondent banks and the risks associated with opening bank accounts with limited requirements. Once this legislation is passed, all banks will be required to comply by offering a basic payment account. As stated, a discussion on the threshold will also be held. While we cannot guarantee that the threshold will be increased, the discussion will be supported by substantiating data, as stated in the motion, to reflect the realities of St. Martin, taking into account, among other things, the most recent census as suggested by MP Webster. I now move on to questions posed by MP York. Why wait for a subsequent initiative instead of making it part of the law now? Through you, Mr. Chair, I want to clarify this is not a matter of waiting for a subsequent initiative. The fact of the matter is that this specific law governs solely the basic bank account, solely. And Article 2 ensures that what is provided to regular account holders must also be provided to basic bank account holders. However, including a requirement that all basic bank account holders must have digital access would not be appropriate within this law. Such a provision would be better suited for legislation that governs all bank accounts. Including it here could inadvertently give those with basic bank accounts at banks such as APC an advantage over individuals with regular bank accounts. I hope that provides the clarity. Next question posed by MP York. Why did the minister send MP Arian's amendment to Central Bank for feedback, but not the original law? Through you, Mr. Chair, to clarify, the prior Minister of Finance, the Honorable MP Arian, is the one that brought the law to Parliament in December 2023. The law itself was drafted by the CBCS. As the law drafted by CBCS, the amendment was sent to CBCS to get their input on the incorporation of the amendment in this law. I now move on to questions posed by MP Arian. Why did the note of unwising not go to the Central Bank for review? Through you, Mr. Chair, I would like to provide some clarity. We received questions from the Member of Parliament, including one from MP Roseberg, regarding persons who have been convicted. This question was forwarded to the CBCS, and the CBCS responded that in Curaçao, this provision was removed from the legislation that was adopted by Parliament of Curaçao. Based on the question from MP Roseberg and the response received from the CBCS, the note of unwising was prepared reflecting exactly what was advised. Therefore, there was no need for it to be reviewed by the CBCS again, as we essentially implemented the solution they themselves proposed in response to the question. For completeness' sake, please be informed that the note of unwising was vetted by the Department of Legal Affairs and Legislation. Next question, is the minister also sending amendment from MP Westcott and the position of the government to the CBCS? Mr. Chair, through you, the amendment proposed by MP Westcott aligns with the law that was adopted by the Parliament of Curaçao and serves to clarify that the payment provider does not distinguish between customers with a payment account and consumers with a basic payment account, other than as provided in this national ordinance. This aligns as well with the original intention of this clause, which is based on Recital 38 of the European Union Payment Account, Directive 2014-92-EU of 23rd July 2014. This provision aims to oblige payment service providers offering payment accounts with basic features to avoid discrimination. The original wording of the draft law provided to Parliament focused more on the requirement than the card of a basic payment account holder should not look different from that of a regular account holder. However, the proposed amendment clarifies the anti-discriminatory provision.
Yes, sorry, Minister. I see MP Westcott Williams would like the floor for interruption. MP Westcott Williams, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the Minister referred in her answers to a question that was posed by another Member of Parliament regarding my proposed amendment and clearly stated why that one, mine, did not have to go back to the Central Bank for vetting. And then this would bring to me the question, the way it is currently formulated in the draft law in St. Martin, which, as I explained in the first round, is very, very ambiguous. And so if the minister can compare the difference between those two articles, the existing one and the one that I have proposed to change, because I am still curious regarding how it is stated in the case of St. Martin. It is very, very subjective. If the minister can go into that. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Westcott-Williams. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, based on the interruption from MP Westcott, the distinction will be clearly explained in a subsequent answer. Yeah. As I was on the question from MP Arian, to continue, this being the reason that no additional feedback from the CBCS is deemed necessary. Regarding the amendment proposed by MP Arian, while I agree with the intention behind MP Arian's amendment, I do not believe this is the appropriate law in which to include it. Including the provisions as stated in the proposed amendment of MP Arian is in this specific law, which pertains only to basic payment accounts, would not be appropriate, as it would effectively grant holders of basic accounts more rights than those with regular bank accounts, which, among others, could make it discriminatory. I do, however, agree with the intent of the amendment. It should instead be incorporated into legislation that governs all bank accounts. I will therefore take this up with the CBCS to explore addressing the issue through a more suitable piece of legislation. Next question. Did the Democratic Party receive the central bank's feedback first? Through you, Mr. Chair, no. The central bank's feedback was shared with all members of Parliament at the same time via an email that was sent to the Griffier on October 24th, 2025. Why wasn't Parliament provided with the opportunity to address central bank's concerns earlier? Through you, Mr. Chair, the advice was requested to establish the government's position on the matter. However, in the interest of full transparency, it was decided to also share it with members of Parliament. This should have been done earlier. While completing and reviewing the responses, it was agreed that the advice should be shared with the members of Parliament. I now move on to the suggestion posed by MP Webster. For verifying the average spending, the Census 2022 data has this information in it, in which the minister can use. Through you, Mr. Chair, I thank MP Webster for her advice as it relates to the census data, as this indeed would be key in discussions with the CBCS about the threshold. I now move on to questions posed by MP Westcott. Can an undocumented person with a long-term connection to St. Martin, example 10 to 12 years of work history, be eligible for a basic bank account? Considering that these individuals work here and may have children who attend schools here, could they be considered to have enough of a vested interest in the country to open a basic bank account? Through you, Mr. Chair, in response to the example raised by the Honorable MP, the answer is no. Individuals residing on St. Martin must be legally residing here in order to be eligible to open a basic payment account. As stated in the explanatory memorandum, the payment service provider will assess whether there is a vested interest in opening such an account, which primarily applies to persons who are lawfully residing on St. Martin. Further characteristics of a vested interest may include Dutch nationality or a profession related to St. Martin. Interning in St. Martin, working at an apprenticeship, or taking a course of study are also options. A vested interest can also exist if an individual lives or resides abroad. This could include a property owner in St. Martin who is required to pay tax on rental income, or individuals who have applied for a work permit or resident permit and is still being processed. Can the minister provide an overview of the pending legislation related to banking that is currently in progress? Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, of course, I can. The listed legislations related to banking, which is on its way to be handled by Parliament as requested by the Honourable MP Westcott and MP York, has been sent to Parliament in writing on November 5th, 2025. It is a total of 6, of which 2 are currently at Parliament and 4 are expected to be submitted in December 2025. Can the minister provide an overview and timeline of matters to be discussed with the Bankers Association based on parliamentary comments, so it can be used as a monitoring mechanism of points that need to be discussed in Parliament? Through you, Mr. Chair, some of the matters raised by members of Parliament that I have taken note of and will discuss with the CBCS and the Bankers Association include but not limited to access to banking for businesses that are currently unable to open accounts, transaction fees, the availability of loans for pensioners, the amount of cash that can be withdrawn from ATMs, and the expansion of digital banking services for all bank accounts. The matter pertaining to the upgrading and improvement of bank services via digitalization is that in the upcoming law that the minister referred to. Through you, Mr. Chair, the National Ordinance on Oversight contains instruments for the bank to influence the quality of service and the applicable rates for all financial institutions and to set minimum and maximum rates for these services. However, as stated previously, I intend to discuss with the CBCS the upgrading and improvement of bank services via digitalization and the best way to address this matter through legislation. My position, Mr. Chair, on the amendment of the Honorable MP Westcott, I would like to state that I support the proposed amendment by MP Westcott as it ensures that all individuals with a basic payment account will receive the same services at a given bank as those with a regular bank account. This amendment also removes uncertainty by excluding the specific word visible, so no distinction at all. Through you, Mr. Chair, this brings me to the end of the questions and answers posed in the second round.
Thank you, Honorable Minister Marinka Gums, for your answering of questions. I now go over to the clarification round. I see MP Westcott Williams would like to have the floor. MP Westcott Williams, you have the floor for clarifications.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a good morning now with you as chair and to my colleagues and as well to the minister and her support staff. Mr. Chairman, through you, I would ask the minister to please clarify the following. With respect to the amendments that have been submitted to this law, and now I paraphrase, with respect to the one of MP Iran, at least the first one that we received, the minister's sentiments are that while she understands the intent that was stated, but this is not the place for that kind of an amendment. And then my question through you, Mr. Chairman, to be clarified would be then where? You know, where and whether, and now I want to go to the list of legislation mentioned by the minister. Is there in any of that to propose legislation mention of a law that will address the matter as put forward in, I believe, the second point of the first amendment of MP Irian? So again, we have received, which I acknowledge, a list of legislation that will be coming in collaboration with the central bank. Does any of that legislation include a more general upgrading of the banking system where digitalization is concerned that would then address the second point of MP Irian's amendment? Then I want to go back to the answer given with respect to the undocumented and the case, the hypothetical case that I put to the minister to receive an answer. And the answer was clear. No, the person needs to be legally registered, or a request for work or residence permit should be in progress. Because, and no, not because, and this is stated in the memorandum of elucidation to the law, that it regards legally registered person. And then again, and I think I asked it in my previous question, but now I ask the minister through you to explain how come that particular phrase, lawfully registered, as in the law of Curacao, how come it does not say it in our law? In the relevant article comparable with Curacao states lawfully registered person. So there's no doubt there. So you cannot bring up the case of the gardener with the children, etc., etc. So the minister referred that it's in our elucidation, and I'm saying why not in the law? And should we not put it in the law so that there's no misunderstanding, so that banks don't have to figure out, well, could you show me then that you have a work permit request in process or a residence request in process? That's my question. We received the list of legislation indeed that is so-called in progress, will be coming sometime between now and the end of the year, more or less. And this now, my question for clarification referred to my earlier request. Are there priorities in that listing of legislation which is being prepared by or primarily by the central bank? And then I had asked the minister to provide not only the list of discussions that as a result of this law will take place with, amongst others, the Bankers Association and CBCS. What I would like to see from the minister is that those points mentioned for discussion, a timeline, an anticipated timeline of having these discussions with the Bankers Association and the CBCS and any other stakeholder who would be part of these discussions. With those clarification questions, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. I now give the floor to MP Ardwell Irian. You have the floor for clarifications.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Regarding the comments by the minister and also the comments or questions posed by MP Saresco Williams, to clarify but also pose a question. In terms of the legislation, the amendment brought forward that was submitted, it basically addresses the concerns brought forward by the central bank. It removes a lot of the ambiguity that was mentioned also, and there was basically two submitted. One excluding the amendment that MP Westcott brought forward, and one that encompasses everything. So that is what has been submitted, and I would like that I don't know if you could get some time, or the minister could see it, to just look at it to verify. And also the question brought forward by MP Westcott Williams on the draft laws that were sent. I would like even more clarity on the different points in the amendment that I brought forward, because I don't want it to be like, yeah, we think it's going to be one of these laws, and then 6 months down the line is a whole different story, right? Because we will be looking, a lot of people are looking forward to these adjustments. In which law exactly is it to be addressed, and is it currently in those draft laws? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Irian. I see MP Roseburg would like the floor for clarification. MP Roseburg, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Blessed afternoon to the Secretary General as well, and the Minister of Finance and the support staff, and of course my honorable colleagues present here today, and of course the people of St. Martin listening online. Just to get some clarification, Minister, in regards to the amendment of MP Irian. I read, of course, the unveiling from the central bank, and they're basically stating the part in regards to, yes, seeing the need, and especially also what was mentioned here today in regards to the gelijkheid, the equality in regards to the basic versus the regular. Sorry, I'm confusing the two laws, but what we're discussing here today versus what we have already, to make sure that there's no ongelijkheid, inequality. But it was also mentioned that what was brought forward by the Honorable MP, that it can be brought in the memorie van toelichting to make sure that that is safeguarded. That's how I read it, right? But what I would like to know is, have those adjustments as suggested by the central bank in regards to, for example, how it's been mentioned in Dutch, I have to translate it, but it's saying, in algemeen deel kan het belang van de digitale toegankelijkheid als instrument voor financiële inclusie nader worden onderstreept. En bij de toelichting van artikel 2 kan expliciet worden opgenomen dat onder de diensten die door de betaalverlener aan de reguliere rekeninghouders worden aangeboden, mede wordt verstaan de toegang tot de digitale betaaldiensten, zoals internetbankieren en mobiel bankieren, et cetera, et cetera. So what I would like to know is, that was already included in the memorie van toelichting, if the ministry is planning to do that. Because if the central bank is saying that that currently would safeguard what the honorable MP is saying, then I'm seeing personally no issue in that sense, because then it's safeguarding what is needed currently. It avoids the part of the inequality that we don't want to have, because again, that's not the goal. We cannot have that. It will only create more issues. So I understand where the central bank is coming from. But seeing that they're providing that as a recommendation, those 1, 2, 3 pointers, I would like to know or get clarified if the minister will include those aanbevelingen, so that I would know where we stand in regards to that. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Roosburg. I see MP Arian would like the floor. MP Arian, you have the floor for clarification.
Yes, thank you. Also, the inherent feedback from the minister in this round, but also previous round, especially in the feedback also from the central bank that was given, the discussion about inequality, etc., ongelijkheid. I want to get feedback from the minister in terms of treatment, Mr. Chairman. The basic bank account is not equal to the regular bank account. So when we talk about inequality, yes, there is inequality, because there's not, the regular bank account cannot send the same amount of money overseas. It cannot participate in the same transactions as a regular bank account. So in essence, there is inequality. Actually, it's so much inequality that we are stripping down the regular one, right, to be able to avoid certain stipulations on an even more international level. So the arguments about inequality, it's contradicting, because the basic bank account is not equal to the regular one. And I want to get feedback from the minister on that. Does the minister acknowledge this or sees them as equal? Thank you.
Thank you, MP Arian. I see MP Westcott Williams would like the floor. MP Westcott Williams, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, I realize that I could have another round, so to speak, of clarifications, because that seemed to be the trend, but that's not what I want with this. With this request for the mic or the floor, I am hearing the MP, that's MP Arian, state that he has another amendment. And I would want to suggest, before we even get to the answering by the minister, this is a proposal of order as to how to continue. And if no objections from the floor, of course. And so my question is through you, and actually to you, Mr. Chairman, if after the clarifications are heard, posed, and then we can have a brief adjournment before the minister comes back with the answer, so that I and I guess we can kind of get a better grip of understanding where we are with amendments, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my proposal, Mr. Chairman, and I thank you.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. That's kind of where my thoughts were as well, but I'm going to check with the floor if there's any objections to that. I don't see any objections, so definitely we'll take that to consideration. Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. MP Roosburg, I see you want the floor. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm a little bit confused, especially seeing the last remark of my colleague, MP Arian, because, and that relates to the inequality, because what I would like to get clarity on, there's a reason that this legislation is being brought forward, right? The current situation that we have makes that persons, not everybody can have a bank account. So to fill that gap, this legislation is being brought forward to make sure that there is more equality, I would say. So I would really like to hear your answer, Minister, through you, Mr. Chairman, to explain the current situation that we have, there's the inequality that we currently have, and what will happen when the legislation is passed eventually, how that inequality will fill the gap. Because at the end, there seems to be inequality at this current moment. So please clarify that through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Roseberg. I don't see any other need for MPs for clarifications. I would now like to adjourn for 5 minutes, just to also discuss the proposal with the minister to see how much time is needed, and also seeing the amendment that we just received. Meeting adjourned for 5 minutes until, let's say, 1 o'clock. Meeting adjourned. Good afternoon once again, and welcome back. After a brief adjournment and discussion with the Honorable Minister, seeing that a few questions were posed in clarification rounds, but also seeing that the Minister has not herself had a chance to read the new amendment that was submitted by MP Arian, we would like to ensure the Minister has the opportunity to do so, and therefore we will caucus with, we'll discuss it with the Secretariat and with the Minister's schedule to see when early next week the Minister can return to just answer the clarification and give her feedback on the amendment that was recently submitted by MP Arian. So we will adjourn the meeting until further notice. Meeting adjourned.